Today, let's go over 10 underrated schools you should consider using for your dynasty. All of these programs will have something good going on for them, whether they're in a really good recruiting location, a history of winning, or just a program that's kind of on the rise but haven't made it over that hump yet. If you want a video of just programs that's all the way at the bottom that you want to rebuild up, I do have a video posted on my channel. Check the description for that link. Lastly, if you like this video, make sure to subscribe, drop a like. I love the support y'all guys been showing so far. I really appreciate it. The channel has been going crazy these past 3 days, but really appreciate it. But let's get into the video. The first school on my list will be the Florida Gators. And this is obviously a SEC school, a big time program. They have a history of winning, but they've been struggling this past few years. They haven't had a winning season since COVID. Billy Napier really struggled, and this year we may see him take off. He's one of the candidates that you would consider on the hot seat, but really just haven't been able to turn the program around yet. And why can't it be you? Come into this program, they bring in a top 10 recruiting class. They're bringing the number 3 recruit quarterback DJ, and he's a stud. I would consider starting him day one. This will be a fun rebuild. The gameplay will be super fun. The roster is talented. I don't think it's good enough to compete for a national championship. May need 2, 3 years to get to that point. But this is a program you could come into and you could really build up and you could really have some fun with day one. And especially for the people that don't want to, grind through, starting with a 70 overall team, you won't have to deal with that with this program. You're able to step right in and have some fun with them. Like I said, this program brings in a top 10 recruiting class. And we could just look at some of the top recruits. They bring in 2 5-stars and a lot of 4-star athletes. 2 linebackers, a tight end, a running back, offensive tackle, edge. Just a lot of prospects, a lot of athletes already in this program. And you definitely will be able to dominate recruiting. Florida has a lot of money to bring to a table. I know, NIL is not in the game, but they just have a lot to offer, a history of winning. So you could definitely dominate with this program day one. Next school on my list is Syracuse. Last year they had a 6-7 record. They had some up and down seasons. They just fired their head coach, brought in Fran Brown, who has actually done a very good job of rebuilding this roster. Brought in a lot of transfer athletes. Brought in Kyle McCord from Ohio State as their starting quarterback, and brought in some good other transfers. Their recruiting class is 38th, which is way better than the last year at 75th. And just a team that's on the rise. Fran Brown, I think he'll do a phenomenal job as a head coach, but that's another thing. But back to the dynasty portion, I think this is a team you can definitely dominate. New York, New Jersey, and also Pennsylvania when it comes to recruiting. If you set your pipeline maybe to somewhere in the Jersey area, somewhere in the PA area, or maybe keep it in New York somewhere, I think you could definitely dominate with this program. And this program is not that far away, man. Like I said, 6-7 season last year, and their roster has done nothing but improve since then. So definitely a program that's not that far. And if you're the type of person where you don't want to start all the way at the bottom and rebuild, I think this is definitely a solid spot to start somewhere in the middle. Next school on my list is Tulane, the Green Waves. This is a solid program. They're coming off an 11-3 year, but the reason I have them on this list is because they lost their head coach. They lost Michael Pratt, who is their starting quarterback, and a few of the players at Tulane also left to go with their head coach over to Houston. So this is a program that's not as good as last year record shows. They also bring in the 67th ranked recruiting class. The year before that, 76th, so not great. They do bring in some solid transfers. They have T.Y. Thompson, who is a transfer quarterback coming in from Oregon. He'll probably be the starter if I had to guess. But a program that's solid, also in a great area with Louisiana being just an area that produces a lot of talent. So you're in a pretty good area. As you see on the screen, their in-state recruits are 26%, which is a solid number. So you're able to bring in some recruits that's in state and you don't have to go too far. And then also some of your surrounding states also has good talent. Georgia, a little bit, about 9 hours away, but Texas right down the road, that also the state that has a lot of talent. So you don't have to travel too far to get talented athletes in. With this program, I would pick recruiter because I think you could really go crazy with recruiting. You kind of little brother school to LSU, but it's enough talent for the both of us, for the both of them, I believe. So definitely a solid program that had a great year last season, but this year I think we'll take a step back. So I think it would be a great school to rebuild. Next school on my list is Nebraska, the Cornhuskers. This is a school that's coming off a 5-7 record, but they do have a very rich history. You know, they have won national championships in the past. They have had very successful seasons, but of late, they have kind of fallen off. Over the last 10 years, they only have 2 winning seasons. So this is your opportunity to turn a program around and take them back, you know, to the good old days, as people like to say. They bring in a number 24th recruiting class. They do have a 5-star quarterback, Dylan Raiola. We'll see what his actual attributes look like, how good he is in the game. But you're starting off with a quarterback that's great. You know, a quarterback that you don't have to worry about. You can recruit every other position. You don't have to worry about the toughest position. And this is a program, like I said, that has rich history. So recruiting shouldn't be super hard. You know, selling being a contender shouldn't be super hard. So bringing people to your program should be fairly easy. Bringing blue chip athletes should be easy. Matt Rule has done a pretty good job of turning the program around so far. It's just on you to complete it. My only concern with this program, people do predict this team to be ranked in the top 25 day one, you know, when a college football season rankings drop. And so this is a program that is, you know, actually pretty good. You know, this is a program that could actually be pretty good in real life. So that's the only concern with this right here. Next school on my list is UCLA. They're an interesting program. This past year they went 8-5. You know, 8-5 season, which is very solid, but there was rumors that Chip Kelly was going to get fired after the season. He took over in 2018, which was the bad roster. He did a solid job of turning them around. He had 3, you know, 8 to 9 win seasons in a row, and then after this season, his 5-star quarterback Moore went to Oregon to be a backup, and Chip Kelly ended up leaving himself. He took an OC job, which is also interesting. You know, stepping down from a head coach in the Pac-12, you know, to go be an offensive coordinator is always a very interesting move. But point is, this program is in a questionable spot. You know, they bring in the 69th ranked recruiting class, which is a lot worse than their previous year. They only brought in 11 recruits, 11 high school recruits, 16 transfers, which is not great. So the program is just in a questionable spot at this point, but they're in a great area, you know, in California, a lot of recruits, you know, very popular school. You have the opportunity to really dominate recruiting if done right. So this program really could be ranked a lot higher on my list, but we're going to keep it where it's at. Next school on my list is Georgia Tech. They're coming off a 7-6 season. This is another school that have some pretty solid history of winning. You know, a solid program. They're located in Georgia, obviously, which is a powerhouse for recruiting, powerhouse for, you know, just recruits in general. But this is a solid program to turn around. You know, they're coming off a few seasons of, I'll say, bad luck and then also unfortunate. You know, this past season they did have a winning record, but before that they had 5 consecutive losing seasons. So, you know, this is a program you definitely could turn around, I feel like, pretty easily. You know, they have a 35th ranked recruiting class this upcoming year. Then they also, which is a lot better than the year before. And this is a school that recruits a lot in state. 48 in-state recruits is crazy. You know, if you look at their recruiting class, their top 5 recruits are all offensive players, which include 2 quarterbacks. So very interesting. I think it'll be a very solid school to rebuild and shouldn't be too hard just because you're able to dominate your in-state recruiting. Next school on my list, we're going to stay in the ACC, North Carolina, the Tar Heels. Mac Brown has done a very solid job with this team. Last year they had an 8-5 record. Throughout his being back at the university, he only had 1 losing season back in 2021, but has done a very solid job. You know, like I said, 8-5 last season, and that was with Drake May. You know, one of the top quarterbacks in college football, one of the top quarterbacks that went in the draft, and only pulling an 8-5 record just shows how tough, you know, college football really is. But they bring in the 27th ranked recruiting class, previous year 30th, which is not bad at all. And this is a solid program, man. Just looking through some of their recruits, they have 3 top recruits in there, or 3 top wide receiver in their recruiting class. So offense should not be an issue at all. They bring in Max Johnson from A&M, so that'll probably be y'all starting quarterback over there. But this is a very solid rebuild, a school that, you know, has some pretty rich history, that's, you know, well known. You shouldn't have much issues recruiting. I will also probably pick the recruiting archetype for this rebuild, just because I feel like you really could dominate recruiting with this school right here. But should be a super interesting, fun rebuild. Shouldn't be too difficult either. The next school on my list will be TCU. This might be a little bit surprising, saying it was in the national championship back in 2022, but this past season went 5-7. The year before the national championship, they also went 5-7. So this is a team that clearly has some up and downs. You know, they lost after that national championship year. They lost a lot of their talent. You know, a lot of their talent went to the NFL, and it showed this past year. You know, only going 5-7. They bring in the 36th ranked recruiting class, which is not great, you know, for a team that just was in the national championship. But their transfer class that they did bring in is very solid. This is a school that could dominate recruiting once again. You know, located in Texas, pick that recruiting archetype so you're just able to dominate. And 86% in-state talent, you know, from this past recruiting class. That is impressive. That is impressive, and that's really putting up a fence around your territory and really just taking in all the talent that's in Texas. And that's something you should definitely look to do in this rebuild. But this is a rebuild that definitely could be very fun. Shouldn't be too difficult, as this program is not terrible. You know, they're not terrible at all, as they just was in the national championship, but you know, just had a down year. So definitely will be a fun rebuild. Next, let's go over to the Big Ten and talk about Maryland, the number 2 school on my list. They're coming off a few solid seasons in a row, back-to-back 8-5 seasons. You know, this is a solid program. Under Armour school is what I always think of. But this is a team that have a 500 bowl record. You know, very very up and down. You know, throughout their existence, I would say. And they bring in the 44th ranked recruiting class, which is not great. You know, not great at all. The year before, 48th, which is also, you know, not great. But a team that could really dominate in the Maryland area, that whole DMV area, as far as recruiting. You know, I think you might struggle to recruit outside of, you know, that DMV area, but could be a very fun rebuild. Should be difficult. You know, they're a solid team, solid roster, but clearly far away. Clearly a lot of work to be done. And I think this would be a very fun rebuild. The number 1 school on my list, we're going to go back to the Big 12, and we're going to talk about UCF, Florida school. They're coming off a 6-7 season, which is okay. But before that, they did have some pretty solid winning seasons, and a program that's, you know, had their ups and downs, but over the past decade have been a very solid program for sure. But the big attraction for this is KJ Jefferson. They compare him to the mini Cam Newton. He's transferring it in from Arkansas, and he'll clearly be the starting quarterback. He might go high in the draft. We'll see, you know, where he go in the draft this next year. But definitely should be a very fun college quarterback to use. You know, very fast. You know, like I said, got kind of that Cam Newton build. Not as tall, and probably don't got the same amount of strength as Cam. But mini Cam is what we'll call him. But this should be a super fun rebuild, man. They're not too far away. They're located in Florida, so they could dominate in recruiting, man. They're in a great area. They bring in the 32nd recruiting class this current year, but year before that, 38th, which is not bad. You know, it's okay. And in-state talent, 55%, which is also very good. You know, like I said, Florida has some very good athletes. So, you know, you're able to tap into some of them Florida pipelines. So this is a very solid team to rebuild. Got them ranked as number 1. Y'all let me know who I left off the list, who should be included. If y'all made it this far in the video, I really appreciate it, man. We've been going crazy these past few days. I got so much more content to drop, man. If y'all want anything specific, let me know in the comments, and I'll make sure I make that video. But appreciate all y'all for watching. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, all that, man.